Jim Miller joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you been, Jim?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Walk me through this. What's ESPN's strategy here, do you think?
Well, the extraordinary part of it is it's 180 degrees different than it was just a couple years ago. I mean, that's, and I mean 180 degrees different, because several years ago, viewers will remember that, there was a brand new digital center and the SportsCenter set was huge, and there was a lot of exchanging of talent, and it wasn't so personality driven. It was the highlights and the technology were the stars, and the big set was the star, and it didn't work. And now what they've done is they've turned around this huge aircraft carrier in a narrow harbor to all of a sudden say, well, wait, maybe we should have some personalities, and maybe we should have some faces and names on regular times that you will remember. I mean, look, Rich, you operated in the golden era of SportsCenter, and there's been a lot of disruption to it since, particularly because of technology. But I think this is a really important attempt on their part to save the franchise.
So you think the franchise of SportsCenter is in danger for real, Jim?
Well, in danger in terms of, I mean, look, they can always put it on. They have 8,760 hours a year to play around with. But the point is it going to be the driver and, the engine of the ESPN programming outside of live sports that it's been, almost since September 7, 1979. And it clearly hasn't been that way. And part of it is because we can get so much information on our phones, and it's, ubiquitous, and we can tailor make our world. We don't have to sit through 25 minutes to get to something we, may want to see. But part of it also is because of the way that they've lost the viewer's connection to the personalities. And I think that this is today what we're seeing is their attempt to try and reverse that. Easier said than done.
I was saying before, I'm just so flabbergasted by it, Jim, because when Stuart and I did the 2 a.m. and then the 1 a.m., we realized that we were a team, but management never, ever said, you are the guys. They never, ever, even when they started promoting us as a team, they still wouldn't admit it. And now here we are, I guess 2 decades later. It just blew me away to hear that now we're going to go personality-driven shows. Times certainly have changed. There's no question about it.
Well, listen, part of what you guys had to struggle through, and Keith and Dan did this as well, they didn't want anybody being bigger than those 4 initials during your time. And they were, Berman was sui generis, so he had a bigger blip on the radar. But for the rest of you, one of the ways in which they tried to contain you, so to speak, on the cost side, on salary side, was they didn't want to give too much encouragement to develop really, really big stars that would all of a sudden be like their version of a David Letterman, and then all of a sudden it's bigger than the network. And that was, kind of part of the DNA, particularly in the 90s at SportsCenter. Now they would, do anything to have those kind of personalities. And, the other thing that we have to watch for is how much of this is actually going to be sports. Because if you turn on the 6 o'clock SportsCenter, sometimes you see like movie reviews. They've been trying in their attempts to try and fix this problem. They've been trying to go wider and deeper in terms of other kind of quote unquote cool information. And it remains to be seen whether people are going to come to ESPN for, culture talk.
So how do you think this 1 year from now, what are we talking about, Jim? Are we talking about still ESPN's financial cost cutting because of cord cutting? Or are we talking about new shows that have put ESPN, if you will, on the SportsCenter map once again? What do you think we're talking about a year from now? Crystal ball it for me.
I think they're desperate to try and find a new financial model. They're trying to get sub fees from a variety of sources. But look, there are college kids graduating this month who are going to move into apartments with each other, and they're never going to call the cable company. So nothing that they do with SportsCenter, I'm not saying that it's going to, go to zero or whatever, but 100 million households to 88 million households in roughly 3 years. That's significant. And the pace may slow in the decreases, but you have a whole new generation that isn't, used to calling the cable company. And that's a big challenge for them. So I think, forget about a year. I think with the SportsCenter announcement that we're seeing today, I really think the next 6 months are key. They have to show some sort of signal to Disney, their parent company, that they understand how to turn this around, because SportsCenter is still a big part of their lineup, and it's an expensive part, and they got to make it work.
Well, maybe I'm just old school, but I see with Van Pelt that there's still has to be a highlight-driven show that is must-see television. There has to be some form of a highlight-driven show that people would still tune to watch, if it is in some way maybe like a late-night show hybrid with sports highlights. I know I would want to maybe just tune in for 20, 30 minutes before turning the screen off. But then again, I'm also one of those guys, Jim, that, if anybody who's out there worked in an amusement park, they're not going to take their family to the amusement park. I lived it, so I don't know if I want to immerse myself in it. But it just seems to me that it's still got to be out there when you think about it.
Listen, I think they agree with you, and I think that's what today means. And that's why you're going to see Kenny Mayne on SportsCenter, and you're going to start to see, Buccigross, probably even a little bit Wilder, if you know what I mean. But that's what they're hoping for. They're going to really try and capture this lightning in a bottle, make it so personality driven that you're going to want to tune into SportsCenter just like you do, Fallon, Kimmel, or Stephen Colbert, and you're going to want to hang out with these people, and you're going to want to hear what they have to say. Otherwise, I'm not sure there's many alternatives left.
Jim, thanks for the time. Let me know when you're in Los Angeles. We'd love to have you in studio, okay?
Many thanks.
You got it. That's James Andrew Miller.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you liked some of that, get some more of that on the Rich Eisen Show app. Follow all the information you see right here on the Rich Eisen Show.